Chapter 19. Well, this is scary. I've never seen this many ships in one place, Zephyr says, a little breathless. Not even during the Carulian War. 200 ships, Benny says solemnly. The peacekeepers aren't messing around. After Melandro, I can't really blame them. This must be nearly 3 full task forces, Maxim offers. On the screen, the massive dreadnought begins to maneuver, keeping the sensor array between it and the oncoming fleet. Weird, look, Will points. I'll keep the station between it and the fleet, whatever that thing is trying to do. It's not done yet. Benny, can you reply to the message? No, sorry, Benny shakes his head. The jamming's still in full effect. The sender, Gabe, was able to hack the comm system from the inside. Well, I hope Gabe is watching, Will says, pushing the throttles all the way forward. The Ghost jumps to full sublight speed. The Peacekeeper fleet wastes no time in spreading out, forming a massive firing line. Command carriers quickly establish a perimeter, while smaller cruisers and corvettes form up into squads and start making attack runs. The station is still crawling with drones. Several of the sensor arrays are beginning to move. The Ghost is racing toward the dreadnought, which is firing on the Peacekeeper corvettes and frigates that have quickly overtaken it. Missiles and blaster fire are flying in all directions. The Ghost is rocking and shaking from stray and intentional shots striking its shields. Okay, hold on. I'm gonna try to bring us into the cargo hold. Don't crash like you did on Harrith, Benny offers. Thanks, I'll keep that in mind, Will says, pulling hard on the controls, while pushing the throttle all the way back and slapping the repulsor lift controls. The Ghost groans and shakes as the main sublight engines drop to zero and the thrusters kick in, attempting to reverse the ship's forward motion. The repulsors scream as Will tilts the nose of the vessel up, adding to the force being used to slow the ship. Something over Benny's head erupts in sparks, causing the Braylac to screech and jump out of his chair. Wuss, Will says, giving Benny some side-eye, while pushing the reverse thrusters to maximum power. The massive cargo hold looms in front of them, the distance closing fast. Over the roar of the various engines and overtaxed systems, Zephyr yells, "At least the ship seems preoccupied. It's not firing on us." Small blessings, Maxim quips. The overhead speakers come to life. "What the Warren are you doing up there? Are we about to die?" Zan shouts. Just then, the Ghost flies straight into the cargo bay. Still moving extremely fast, it clips a support beam, cutting clean through it. The ship starts to spin as Will shouts, "Hold on to something!" Benny is back in his chair, screaming, "Just like Harrith!" "Shut up," Will shouts, pulling on the controls as the landing gear deploys. He flips a switch and the repulsors immediately power down, dropping the ship roughly onto its landing gear. There is a loud groan of metal straining to support the weight of the ship, but it slowly subsides, though the sound of metal scraping on metal doesn't. Will toggles a few other controls, and everything goes quiet, except for the sound of sobbing. Everyone turns to look at Benny, who's clutching his console, huge eyes tightly screwed shut. Benny, we're down safe," Will says. Benny opens his eyes and sees his 3 friends staring at him, trying not to laugh too hard. He slides from his seat and flips them off as he exits the bridge. "He's getting good at human gestures," Zephyr observes. Will nods. "He really is. Let's suit up," he says, as the ship shakes again. Get in, get out. Hopefully. While the cargo ramp is still being lowered, 3 heavily armed and armored forms start walking down it, boots thumping. Another much smaller, but no less armored figure scurries after them. "This stuff is heavy," Benny complains. Will turns to look at the hacker, who's wearing a set of special and expensive armor. "You're welcome to wear no armor. You saw how well that went last time we were here." Fine. I'm just saying. Don't walk so fast." Will looks past Benny to Prothea and Zan, who are standing at the top of the ramp. "Okay, you two, keep the ship buttoned up. The self-defense protocols should keep you safe. For a while, at least." That's not all that reassuring, Zan offers. You really should work on your delivery. Will shrugs and turns to join the others at the base of the ramp. Best I can do. We'll hurry, though. I don't want to spend a minute longer than necessary on this thing. As if to underline his point, the entire cargo bay shakes and something somewhere explodes. Will looks around, then back at the two scientists. This thing can't last forever, not against so many ships. Also not reassuring, Prothea says, turning to the control panel next to the cargo bay airlock doors. Without another word, she hits the control. As the ramp lifts and the inner airlock closes, Zan quickly turns and blows a kiss to Benny, before turning and walking into the hold, out of sight. Things are getting pretty serious between you two, Maxim says, looking at the blushing Benny. Zephyr is panning her pulse rifle left and right. The massive hold, easily 4 times bigger than the Ghost, is almost empty. There are a few crates scattered here and there, but otherwise nothing. Seems weird this is empty, she comments, walking cautiously towards a large door set in the wall. The ship shakes again. We'd better hurry, Will says, following her. How are we going to find him? This thing is massive. There's no way we can search the whole thing. Not only is it big, but sooner or later the mechanosquid are going to show up. Benny spins around a full 180 degrees. He's clutching the small pulse pistol Will gave him in both hands. You think there are still mechanosquid on board? Maybe they're all outside, doing whatever it is they're doing. Maxim puts a hand on Benny's shoulder. Any idea how we find Gabe? The small armored hacker shakes his head. No, I kinda hope he'd give us a sign or something. Like what? Zephyr is pointing at the door they're walking towards. A light over the door is blinking in a pattern. Space Morse code? Will asks. No idea what that is, but that light is blinking in Peacekeeper beep code. It's Gabe. She picks up her pace, and the others follow suit. The corridor outside the cargo bay is just like the corridors they explored last time they were aboard the ship. Featureless, dark. Will spots a blinking light at the far end of the corridor and motions everyone to follow. A few corridors and 3 ramps later, they enter a junction where several corridors come together. Aiming her rifle down each corridor in turn, Zephyr says, This is familiar. Maxim nods, aiming his rifle down a corridor with a blinking light over its entrance. Not in a good way. Come on. Will, who is bringing up the rear, spots a small service drone scurry past the entrance of the corridor they're in. It doesn't come back or pursue them. Okay, it's getting weird that we aren't being attacked. Interrupt. Biological infestation detected. Location unknown. Foreign vessel in cargo hold Alpha 3. Internal sensors are malfunctioning. Foreign software likely responsible. Purge memory buffers. In sensors secondary assembly. Intruders detected on fabrication level. Dispatching internal defense drones. Interrupt. Error. Internal defense drones not responding. Purge internal defense drones primary command buffer. Internal defense drones now responding. Interrupt. Reconfiguration of sensor platform assets estimated at 85% complete. Hostile fleet causing significant damage. Repair drones attempting repairs. Estimated chances of surviving current combat scenario, 15%. Estimated likelihood of vessel destruction before transmission, 0%. My friends are in danger. Gabe looks up at the fabricator, which is still working. I must buy them some time. Attack drones will be here soon. The small service drone comes to life, sensor domes lighting up, and darts to the door of the fabrication facility. Shiny. Over the sound of the weapon's fire, Zephyr shouts, You had to say something, didn't you? Hey, this isn't my fault. I mean, they were definitely gonna attack at some point, I think. Will glances down at Benny. Where to? Benny is looking this way and that until he spots another blinking light up ahead. This way! He dashes off, Maxim on his heels, Zephyr and Will holding the rear guard. At least there aren't as many as last time, Will shouts. Are you trying to get us killed? Zephyr hollers back, ducking a tentacle swipe. Come on, Benny shouts, waving them on. He turns to run down the next corridor and runs right into a drone. His screech draws Maxim's attention. Turning, Maxim asks, "What the?" then stops and raises his rifle. The small drone has raised two of its tentacles in a "don't shoot me" position and ducked, its sensors turned toward the deck. Using its remaining tentacles, it scoots backwards away from them. Realizing Maxim hasn't shot it, it looks up, and one of the sensor domes starts blinking. "Gabe?" Maxim and Benny say at the same time. More blinks from the drone. At that moment, Will and Zephyr round the corner. "What's the hold? What the hell?" Will spins around to bring his rifle to bear on the drone, but Maxim is faster, pushing the barrel down with one hand. "It's Gabe." Before anyone can say anything more, the drone turns and scuttles down the corridor. Zephyr is still firing at more drones behind them. "Fire in the hole!" she shouts, moments before the corridor shakes and a wall of dust explodes toward them. "That might buy us some time. What's happening?" "We're following Lassie, the friendly mechano-squid," Will shouts. "We're doing what now?" she asks, following him through a hatch. As soon as she enters the room, the door slams shut. "What the hell?" Will asks, looking around. The small drone has climbed up on top of a massive machine. "What is that?" Maxim is examining the now closed hatch. Benny looks the enormous machine up and down. "Some kind of gigantic industrial fabricator." Maxim turns back from the door. "Looks like, yes. What's it making, though?" There's a bang on the door and everyone jumps. The sound isn't repeated. Something must have been moving down the corridor. The little drone scampers over to a section of the machine, grabbing a data cable and plugging it into a port on the underside of its small frame. "I am glad they're safe. I hope I can keep them that way," Gabe thinks, as he plugs the data cable into the drone. He sends a command to the Peacekeeper software. It's been keeping Siege Perilous busy, running rampant through subsystems. The sensors on the small drone go dark. "Gabe!" Benny shouts, as the small device slumps, inactive, and slides down the deck. Okay. Now what?" Zephyr says, eyeing the giant machine, then the small drone resting next to it. Will shrugs. Yeah, I kinda thought Gabe would be more active in his rescue, secret messages and all. I mean, if that was him, is he dead now?" He looks down at Benny. "Ideas?" The Braylac shrugs, which is barely noticeable under all his armor. "Not really." The worry on his face is evident. He glances at the immense fabricator. From somewhere in the back of the machine, a voice says, "I have a plan." Everyone spins to face what looks like a brushed aluminum cross between Will and Maxim. 2 legs, 2 arms, a broad body and long legs, a head that's humanoid-shaped, glowing yellow eyes, a mouth and small nose. It comes closer and stops. "I have missed you all." Benny looks at it, then finally says, "Gabe, is that you?" The tall droid nods. "Indeed. My original body was severely damaged and subsequently recycled by Siege Perilous once my spark was uploaded into the primary computer core. I was forced to create a new frame for my spark." "Siege who now? Spark what now?" Will says. The shiny new Gabe turns his head toward Will. "Siege Perilous. That is the designation of this vessel. It is part of something called the Amalgamation of Parts, an entire society made up of machine intelligences. It views biological life forms as an infection to be excised from everywhere." "Oh, lovely," Maxim says. Zephyr is still glaring at new Gabe. His new body is more organic-looking than his old one. The small, fine manipulation arms are gone. His torso is solid and blocky, but also far sleeker than the first version of Gabe. "You have a mouth now," Zephyr points out. Gabe bows his head. "I decided to make improvements since I was designing a new frame for my spark." Maxim nods appreciatively. "Makes sense. Good choices. This body seems more robust than the previous you." New Gabe nods. "Thank you. I took the liberty of incorporating designs the Peacekeeper software uncovered within Siege Perilous data files. It seems this general shape and design is typical for more mobile units within the amalgamation." What now? Peacekeeper software? Will asks. Gabe points to where the mystery box had been welded to his old body. As it happens, that device was a specially designed data core to house cutting-edge Peacekeeper software. The software possesses a rudimentary intelligence. In the past few months, Benny and I had never attempted to reason with the hunchback, as you call it. He shrugs, something he's never been able to do before. It has been instrumental in keeping my spark alive and hidden within the system of Siege Perilous. Before unleashing it, I made a compressed copy. It is now fully integrated into my core systems. Gabe rests a metallic hand on his chest. I am vastly improved. Not only do I still possess my engineering skills, but thanks to the Peacekeeper software, my infiltration and counterintelligence capabilities rival those of Benny. Benny tuts. We have a hacker. Will makes a face. Oh, well, okay, that sounds cool. Look, buddy, this is great, and we obviously have a lot of catching up to do, but we really should get out of here. Again, to punctuate the point, the entire ship rocks, and the lighting in the room dims, then returns. Agreed. We must hurry, though. The Peacekeepers are overwhelming the ship, but it will still send its transmission before then, unless we stop it. Transmission? Zephyr asks, heading for the door. There's no control panel, Will notices. That is the reason the ship is here. It is reprogramming the long-range sensor arrays to become a massively powerful transmitter. It intends to send a message back to where it came from, informing the amalgamation of biological life in this quadrant. It is calling in reinforcements. That's not good, Maxim says. Understatement of the week, Will says. He points to the door. Gabe? New Gabe nods, and the hatch opens. Always a wrinkle. Everyone's calm erupts in static all at once. Will grabs the side of his head. What? He shouts. Can you hear us? It's Prathia, Will thinks. Zephyr looks at her wrist comm, embedded in the forearm of her armor. We hear you, Prathia. What happened to the... The floor shakes and lights flicker. Jamming. It ended a few centocs ago. Gabe tilts his head up to the ceiling. The ship has suffered tremendous damage. The communications assembly has been destroyed. From what I can determine, it is still 65% combat effective, however. Tough ship, Will says. Gabe nods. Indeed. Maxim looks hopeful. Does that mean it can't transmit back to where it came from? Gabe shakes his shiny new head. I am afraid not. Since it is using the sensor array to transmit, the ship's communication gear is not needed. It merely needs an open data channel, which is a different section of the ship. Prathia, can you tell what's happening outside? Will asks, poking his head into the corridor, looking left and right. The Peacekeepers have suffered pretty heavy losses, but are making headway. The Dreadnought is heavily damaged. It sounds like one of the command carriers has been destroyed. A pause. Then, oh, several Harrith naval vessels arrived a minute or two ago as well. Will looks at the others, who shrug. That seems like a big deal. By the way, Prathia continues, there's a massive hole in the cargo hold door and the bay is now in vacuum, just so you know. Will's eyes go wide. Is the ship? The ship is fine. We are too, thanks for asking, the scientist replies tersely. Good to know, Will says, motioning the others to follow. See if you can reach the Peacekeepers or Harrith Navy. It'd be great if they hold off firing at the cargo hold anymore, at least until we're off this bucket. We'll try, but I'd hurry. Sounds like the Peacekeepers are making a big push. The deck shakes again, and several beams fall from the ceiling onto the huge fabrication unit. The service drone Gabe had previously occupied has been crushed under the debris. Again, Gabe looks to the ceiling. The ship is redirecting all its resources to building drones and missiles to keep the fleets away from it. I can't be 100% certain, but I believe that the reconfiguration of the sensor array is almost complete. The additional drones and missiles are to keep the Peacekeepers and Harrith Navy occupied while it finalizes the reconfiguration. Will nods. And no one is firing on the platform because they don't realize what it's planning. Smart, evil monster ship. They begin their slow march toward the cargo hold and the waiting ghost. The remains of the drones they had destroyed are gone, nodding to the few bits of metal left behind. Gabe says, "Everything that can be turned into a drone or a missile is. There are thousands of drones similar to the model I occupied. Should make getting back to the Ghost easier," Benny says hopefully. The comms crackle again. Zephyr?" It's Zan. "I'm patching in a communication from Peacekeeper ship Pax Imperius." The line goes quiet, then erupts in static and shouting voices. "Peacekeeper intelligence operative Zephyr?" Retired. Well, framed, actually. But yes, to whom am I speaking?" she asks, looking first to Maxim, who shakes his head, and then to Will, who shrugs. "This is Captain Benish of the Pax Imperius. I'm fleet commander for this engagement." The sound of fire suppression systems and shouted orders can be heard in the background. "I understand you and your team are on board the Dreadnought?" Will stops and turns to look at Zephyr, mouthing "your team," with his eyes raised. She waves him off. "Yes, sir, that's correct." "I received word from the Harrith Navy that they recently had an operative on board." "Murta," Will says, scowling, "and that there's a chance the operative installed some type of virus or something." They all stop and look at each other, then turn to Gabe, who stares back at them. "We don't know anything about that, but I'm guessing it can't be remotely activated," Zephyr says. Over the line, there's more shouting and a few screams. "That's correct," Captain Benesh replies. "Apparently, it was designed to be activated only within a short distance, by someone aboard the ship. I've no idea why, seems like a design flaw to me. The intent seems to have been to use it to take over the computer systems of the vessels at a later date." "Captain, this ship is planning to use the Barolo array to send a message back to where it came from," Zephyr says. "What?" There's silence. Then the captain can be heard shouting muffled orders. Then he's back. "Then your mission is even more imperative. Do you know where the device was installed? You have to get close enough to it to activate it. I'm sending the activation protocols now." "It's gotta be on the bridge," Will says. He snaps his armored fingers. "Damn it, he was nosing around one of the consoles. I bet he attached it there." Gabe does his looking at the ceiling thing again. "We have perhaps a quarter talk." Benny jumps up and down. "That's got to be it. He installed it and it went dormant, waiting to be activated. I bet that crabneck was waiting until the Harrith Navy arrived, and he'd have stolen the ship right out from under us. Clever, I'll give him that." He sighs. "Wish I'd thought of it." Will looks at his new and improved mechanical friend. "Would that even work, Gabe? This ship seems pretty advanced." The droid nods. "It could. Without knowing the specifics of the virus or the delivery device, it is hard to say. However, given the relative success the Peacekeeper software has had in not only avoiding deletion, but causing significant irritation to the primary intelligence, I would give the Harrith virus at least even odds." He motions for them to follow him, and turns down a different corridor to the one they had entered from. "Keep in mind, this vessel and the intelligence it houses are quite advanced, but also several thousand years old. I can get us to the bridge in time, but we must hurry." At that, he bends down and picks up Benny, who squeaks.